Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling, well, a really significant shift in how we understand the world around us. The rapidly growing impact of misinformation, disinformation, and those increasingly convincing deepfakes. It feels like this has moved from, the fringes to the mainstream incredibly quickly.
It really has. And to get a proper handle on it, we've gathered quite a diverse set of perspectives for you today. We'll be looking at academic research from the University of Essex. They examine the fundamental human rights at stake.
Okay.
Then we have insights from Sage journals giving us more of an overview of, well, how these issues are being studied academically.
Right.
And for the real-world financial side, we'll draw on a Forbes article.
Good.
And finally, a report from Northwestern University's Buffett Institute. That one details threats to international security and even some surprising potential uses in counterterrorism.
So our goal in this deep dive is really to synthesize all of this for you, pull out the most vital pieces. We want to understand what these terms actually mean, why they're having such a broad impact, on society, global security, and what efforts are underway to address them, all without getting too bogged down. Okay, so let's start with the basics then, because the language here, it feels important.
Absolutely. Yeah, the University of Essex research makes a really crucial distinction. It's worth getting clear from the outset. They define misinformation as simply incorrect information shared without any intention to deceive or cause harm.
Okay.
Think of someone genuinely believing a false story and just, sharing it with friends.
Right, so a mistake,
Yeah.
essentially, an honest mistake,
Yeah.
and then disinformation. That's different.
Precisely. Disinformation is also false or inaccurate information, but the key difference, and this is critical, is the intent behind it. It's shared deliberately to mislead, deceive, or cause harm. That malicious intent is what sets it apart.
Okay, got it. Carelessness versus deliberate deception. And where do deepfakes fit into this picture?
Well, deepfakes, as the Essex research points out, are a particularly, let's say, potent form of disinformation. They are manipulated or sometimes entirely fabricated images and videos. They can be incredibly realistic, often making it very, very difficult for you to tell what's real and what's not. Imagine AI perfectly mimicking someone's face and voice.
Yeah, it feels like the scale of this has just exploded in recent years. What's been the major catalyst, do you think?
The University of Essex research really highlights the technological revolution, particularly the rise of social media as a primary driver. Just the sheer volume of information being created and shared online is unprecedented. Social media platforms have become these primary channels for news, communication, but also for the rapid spread of both misinformation and disinformation.
And it's not just the amount of stuff online, is it? It's also how we actually encounter it.
Exactly right. The algorithms that these platforms use, the ones curating our feeds, they play a really significant role. Essex explains how these algorithms are designed to show us content we're likely to engage with, click on, comment on, share, which can inadvertently create what we often call filter bubbles.
Ah, the filter bubble.
Yeah. It means we're primarily exposed to information that just confirms our existing beliefs, makes us potentially more susceptible to misinformation, and, crucially, less likely to encounter diverse perspectives.
So this whole situation has really profound implications, especially when you think about our basic human rights. The Essex source goes into this quite deeply.
Oh, definitely. What's really striking is how broadly mis- and disinformation can undermine fundamental rights. The research argues it can amplify existing discrimination and biases within a society, which is deeply concerning.
How so?
Well, for example, if disinformation campaigns target specific minority groups with false narratives, this can exacerbate prejudice, and that can lead to tangible discrimination in things like employment, housing, or even personal safety.
Wow, that's a really unsettling point. It's not abstract at all. It has real-world consequences for vulnerable people. And what about our ability to just participate in how our societies are run, like voting?
Yeah, the impact on democratic processes is a huge concern. The University of Essex specifically mentions Article 25 of the ICCPR.
The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights.
That's the one. It guarantees our right to participate in public affairs, to vote freely, and they point to examples where mis- and disinformation campaigns have been used to manipulate public opinion and potentially influence the outcome of elections, referendums.
They mentioned some specific places, didn't they? Ecuador, the Philippines, and the alleged interference in the 2016 U.S. election.
Yes, those are key examples where there's evidence, or at least strong allegations, of coordinated campaigns, often involving bots, maybe state-sponsored propaganda, aiming to spread misleading information, to sway voters, or discredit the whole process. They also mention how spreading false info to undermine election monitoring missions can really erode trust in democracy itself.
And it's not just about these big national elections, is it? What about the people trying to hold power accountable day to day? Journalists, activists.
That raises a really important point about their safety and just their ability to do their work. The Essex source talks about computational propaganda, using automated accounts, orchestrated online activity
Right.
to target individuals who are critical of governments or certain political movements. This can be state actors or other groups trying to silence dissent.
So the goal is basically just to shut down scrutiny and criticism,
Yeah.
make them afraid to speak out.
Precisely. The aim is often to damage their reputation through coordinated online harassment, maybe incite public backlash against them,
Yeah.
or just create a general climate of fear, what they call a chilling effect, that discourages them from continuing their vital work. As the UN Secretary General noted, these online campaigns can severely restrict fundamental freedoms like expression, association, assembly.
It paints a really disturbing picture. And Essex also points out this tactic where governments themselves are using the label fake news in, well, problematic ways.
Yes, they highlight a growing trend, where governments use terms like fake news or misdisinformation, not really to combat harmful content, but more to suppress legitimate criticism, shut down important public debates, or even deny allegations of human rights violations.
So it's a shield, a way to deflect scrutiny when they're accused of wrongdoing.
Exactly. It undermines the very principles of transparency and accountability that are essential for upholding human rights, including, the duty to investigate alleged violations like the right to life. And we also need to consider how online content itself can be a vehicle for hate.
Right, things like memes. It's shocking how quickly they can spread and how easily they can be twisted to promote really hateful ideas.
Essex emphasizes that a significant amount of mis and disinformation, especially in visual formats like memes, actually contains hate speech. We're talking content that incites hatred, justifies violence against certain groups, promotes intolerance, racism, and the anonymity that the online world often provides. That can really exacerbate this, reducing the perceived consequences for spreading such awful stuff.
So, okay, on one side, we have this explosion of potentially harmful content fueled by tech. But on the other side, the ways we try to address it can also create new problems. Is that right?
That's a critical tension to understand, yes. The Essex paper notes that while states, businesses, international bodies are developing various responses, expert groups, content removal policies, new anti-disinformation laws, media literacy programs, which are all important, but some of these very measures can unintentionally pose further risks to fundamental human rights, particularly freedom of expression. It's a really delicate balancing act.
Wow. It sounds incredibly complex to navigate. Okay, let's maybe shift focus a bit now to the business world, because the Forbes article really brings home the fact that this isn't just a societal issue. It has very tangible financial consequences for companies.
Absolutely, it does. Forbes underscores the very real financial risks businesses now face from mis and disinformation, especially deepfakes. They highlight how a convincingly faked video or a manipulated image can trigger immediate panic and lead to significant swings in a company's stock price, literally in minutes. They point to that 2023 incident where a fake image caused a noticeable market dip for a company.
Wow, just one piece of fake content causing that kind of reaction? That really shows the power here. And it sounds like certain times are especially risky for businesses.
Yes, the article emphasizes that sensitive periods like initial public offerings, IPOs, and mergers and acquisitions, M&As, are particularly vulnerable times. During these critical moments when investor confidence is absolutely paramount, even small amounts of manufactured misinformation can have huge negative impacts. They even cite PwC insights on this.
Okay, so beyond the immediate financial hit, what about the longer-term damage? Reputation, the brand itself?
Yeah, the reputational risks might be even more damaging in the long run. Forbes explains how deepfake tech has advanced so much. It can convincingly clone voices, even the likenesses of senior executives now.
That's incredible.
It opens the door to creating fake speeches, interviews, even fake internal memos that could just completely destroy years of carefully built trust. Trust with customers, investors, employees, gone in an instant. We're also seeing, disturbingly, a rise in sophisticated fraud, where synthetic voices and deepfake videos are used to trick employees into transferring huge sums of money or giving up sensitive data.
That's a really sophisticated level of deception. And it doesn't just affect the company internally, right? It impacts how customers see them too.
Exactly. AI can now generate vast numbers of seemingly genuine fake customer reviews very, very quickly. This can trash a company's online reputation, mislead potential customers, and ultimately just erode overall trust in the brand. Plus, Forbes warns about AI being used more in sophisticated identity theft criminals animating stolen ID photos to bypass security for fraudulent loans and other scams.
So it's clear businesses need to be incredibly vigilant. The Forbes article does touch on some ways companies can defend themselves, though, right?
Yes, thankfully. They outline a multi-layered defense strategy. The foundation is education and awareness, making sure all employees in an organization understand what deepfakes and disinformation are, how to spot them, and what to do if they see something suspicious. They use this analogy of running fire drills, but for the digital world, which I think is quite apt.
That makes perfect sense. Everyone needs to be trained and ready. What about the role of technology itself in protecting businesses?
Tech plays a critical role, definitely, in detection and prevention. Modern cybersecurity tools are increasingly incorporating specialized deepfake detection and AI-powered systems that can analyze communication patterns, spot anomalies that might indicate manipulation. Forbes also stresses, the ongoing importance of robust encryption for sensitive data and using multi-factor authentication to stop impersonation attempts.
Right, the basics still matter. And finally, it seems like just being open and honest with the public is also key.
Absolutely. Forbes argues businesses need to be proactive, communicate about these challenges, be transparent about the measures they're taking to protect themselves and you, their customers. This openness can help build trust and resilience, allowing the organization to better weather any misinformation storms that might hit. They compare it to getting a vaccination against, well, virtual viruses.
So a mix of vigilance, tech safeguards, and proactive transparency. That seems like the best approach for businesses. Now let's turn our attention to the international security side of things. The Northwestern University report really brings this into sharp focus. This feels like a whole different level of potential danger.
It really is. The Buffett Institute report states very clearly that the rapid advance of AI, and deepfakes especially, is a growing and significant concern for the international community, governments, the public, everyone. It has profound implications for national security and cybersecurity. They emphasize that in a global landscape already struggling with widespread misinformation and, frankly, declining trust, AI offers increasingly sophisticated tools to create incredibly believable false information, which could escalate political tensions, incite violence, or even potentially contribute to international conflict.
And the report gives some really concerning real-world examples of how deepfakes have already been misused politically.
Yes, they cite several key incidents as warnings. There was the alleged deepfake video of Malaysia's economic affairs minister back in June 2019. There was that fabricated video of the Belgian prime minister about COVID-19, apparently made by Extinction Rebellion Belgium in spring 2020. And perhaps the most impactful example, the weaponization of that deepfake video of Ukrainian President Zelensky shortly after the Russian invasion in March 2022.
Yeah, that Zelensky video was such a stark illustration of how quickly and widely this kind of manipulation can spread,
Wow.
and the potential it has to cause immediate chaos and undermine morale during a critical international crisis.
Exactly. The speed it circulated, the potential to sow confusion, undermine Ukrainian resolve, it was deeply concerning for security experts. The Northwestern report also raises the prospect of even more direct, dangerous applications like falsifying military orders, which could lead to just immense confusion and instability within armed forces.
That's a truly terrifying thought. But the Northwestern researchers also explore a really unexpected potential use for deepfakes. In counterterrorism, this is something I hadn't considered at all.
It is a controversial area, definitely, but an important area of ongoing research. Northwestern University's NSAIL, that's their Security and Artificial Intelligence Lab, is investigating using deepfake tech as a tool against terrorists to destabilize terror groups. Well, their TREAD project, Terrorism Reduction with AI deepfakes, has actually created realistic deepfake videos of deceased terrorist figures. People like Anwar al-Awlaki and Abu Muhammad al-Adnani, they've developed these videos with training in both English and Arabic. You can see examples in their report.
Wow, so the idea is to essentially put words in the mouths of these dead figures after they're gone,
Yeah.
to maybe sow dissent, spread conflicting messages, undermine their authority within those groups.
That's the core concept they're exploring, yes. However, and this is really crucial, the Northwestern researchers themselves are very clear about the huge ethical considerations and the absolute necessity for extreme caution. They strongly recommend very sparing use of deepfakes in counterterrorism, and they advocate for establishing a strict code of conduct for governments thinking about using this.
So it sounds like a very delicate balancing act, where
Yeah.
the potential benefits would have to be incredibly carefully weighed against the massive risks. Okay, on the policy front then, what kind of responses are being considered at the government level, the international level, to deal with all this?
Well, the Northwestern report highlights a specific proposal from their researchers. They call it a deepfakes equities process for governance. It's modeled after the existing vulnerabilities equities process in cybersecurity,
Hmm.
where governments decide whether to disclose software flaws or maybe exploit them.
Right, I've heard of that.
The idea is a similar framework for deciding when the potential benefits of using deepfakes against really high-profile threats might outweigh the significant risks involved.
So a formal process for evaluating the responsible use of these powerful, potentially dangerous tools. And it seems like international organizations are also starting to grapple with this.
Yes, the report notes the EU's initial steps towards regulating AI back in June 2023, and it anticipates we'll see more international efforts, more collaborations soon. There's a growing global recognition this isn't just one country's problem, it's transnational.
And within the research community itself, there seems to be an expectation of a much bigger focus now on detection and mitigation, building defenses.
Absolutely. The Northwestern report really underscores the growing concern about the erosion of public trust. Trust in media, in information sources generally, all because of how sophisticated and accessible AI and deepfakes are becoming. So yes, they anticipate a significant surge in research aimed at developing more effective ways to detect deepfakes, and also strategies for mitigating their harmful effects on individuals, organizations, and of course, international security.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from defining the terms, exploring the tech drivers, the impacts on human rights, businesses, the security threats, even potential counterterrorism uses, and the responses being considered. To try and bring it all together, what would you say is the most critical takeaway from all this complex information?
I think the overarching takeaway really is that the information landscape is undergoing a fundamental seismic shift. We are entering an era where the line between authentic and artificial content is becoming increasingly blurred. It's harder and harder to tell. And this poses significant challenges across pretty much every sector, while also maybe presenting potential, though very carefully considered, opportunities. Navigating this new reality, it's going to require a multifaceted approach. It needs individuals, organizations, and governments all playing a part.
It's definitely a lot to think about. And it leaves me with a final thought for you, the listener. Given this ever-increasing sophistication, the extensibility of these technologies, what responsibility do each of us have? As individuals, as part of organizations, as citizens in this global community, what's our role in navigating this evolving reality? And in safeguarding trust and safeguarding fundamental human rights? It's a huge question and one that will undoubtedly shape our future. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.